The presentations. There are going to be three presentations, and right now I'm going to be calling upon presenting on building cyber resiliency for government organizations. And to give the presentation, I would now like to call upon Mr. Vikas Awasthi, Director Government and PSU Business Checkpoint. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Vikas Awasthi?
Dr. Narendrath, Mr. Sanjay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And I will not take much time, not because my organizers told me to take 10 minutes, because I had to rush to airport. So I'll not bore you much. I'll just take 10 minutes, and it's an important topic, right? As human behavior and interaction continue to take shape with the ubiquitous technologies. Organizations, must take responsibility to adopt and continuously keep investing into cyber security. They should prevent and they should prevent from malicious actors to not take advantage of these technological shifts. In the next 10 minutes, I am going to talk about what is being given to me, what is the current threat landscape, and this would be predominantly with the Indian government and military establishment. This is not an overall chart which I am going to present you and scare you, while cybersecurity is definitely a scary thing. But what is cyber resilience and why we are talking about cyber resilience? I think half of my job was being done by Dr. Narendrath and many of our panelists. So that's why I'll take lesser time now, because some important topics were being touched upon. A lot of emphasis being laid down by Dr. Narendrath to have a CISO in your organization. That's very important, right? And the qualification of those CISOs, that's also important to build cyber resilience, and how we can partner and what Checkpoint can do with the entire community to build this cyber resiliency, right? Today, since morning we are talking about internet and digital transformation, right? We all are harnessing power of internet, and usage of internet has grown exponentially in our country, especially with the accelerated shift of COVID-19 and work from home. All these have been catalyst to make our life dependent on internet. Just to make one small 30 seconds call that I was with in the morning, I was with one of delegates, and he was feeling helpless without his mobile because his mobile was not working. So that shows that how much we are dependent on internet. But if you see what has happened and how this COVID has shifted our life, and what has happened during the pandemic, there is a striking similarity. There is a striking similarity between biological pandemic and a cyber pandemic, right? And that's where we still are in the middle of pandemic. Perhaps we can say that's an endemic. So what is similarity? If you see, there's an infection rate, and what World Health Organization says before the eruption of this Omicron, on an average, one person was infecting to 2.5 people. And if you compare this with the cyber pandemic, what happens? It is code red or slammers kind of malwares. Code red was doing around 2,000 hosts per minute, right? If we talk about how we can prevent this infection in a biological pandemic, perhaps best treatment is, today we have a vaccination, or earlier best practices were either we were quarantining yourself, shelterings, isolation, and then we were doing contact tracing, so that lesser people are getting contact with the infected person. What do we do in when we get cyber pandemic or cyber espionages, right? What are the best practices? First thing comes into mind, that's a real-time prevention. Second, we again do a quarantine here. So that's by doing sandboxing, micro segmentation, And we were talking about trust. So zero trust is a new buzzword. We all talk about zero trust, and the first and foremost point here comes in our mind in digital microsegmentation when we talk about zero trust. Right. What are the best practices which we follow when we talk about biological pandemics? One is before vaccination, of course, we used to do mask, hygienes, and all those things. So, cyber hygiene, I think Dr. Narendra mentioned about it. Cyber hygiene is also important when we talk about safety best practices in cyber pandemic. Now, what has happened during all this pandemic, well, biological pandemic? I will throw some results and some data, some statistics, whatever you want to call, with in front of you, and I'll just take 30 seconds. I'll keep reminding to my organizers so that they should not give me a card. In India, all government and military organizations, on an average, they're being attacked 1800 times in a week. And if we compare this with the global peers or global peers, they are around 1130. So almost 1.5 times we are getting more attacked. What is Emotinet is a top malware which is helping. So I'm sure that it would be in our national malware repository by now. And 90% of these attacks are coming via email. So moving on to better, what are the most impacted industries in the last 6 months, and how they are, how we are work doing against our Indian against our global peers. I'm sorry. So these are the weekly. I hope it's visible. And if you see the government and military establishment, almost in last 6 months we had more than 3,000 weekly attacks, which is again up from 1800. And if we include utilities also into it, these are around 2000 weekly attacks which we are witnessing in Indian government organizations. If we compare this with our global peers, we are having around lesser number of attacks on government organization, lesser numbers of attacks in utilities. So we are quite up when it comes to weekly attacks. We are witnessing much more weekly attacks in our Indian government organizations. And what are the, if we talk about from where these attacks are originating, in the last 6 months, if you see, most of the attacks were originated from United States and were delivered, 90% were delivered via email. So that gives us a thought to ponder on, is that we need to secure our email. Email security becomes our number one priority because that's a number one threat vector. Now if we compare ourselves from a global peers, again 57% coming from US, and they have a lesser number of email attacks as far as 80%, and 20% comes from web based attacks. And if we also compare what are the ransomware, botnet, and what kind of attacks we are seeing. So if you see India versus global, the pink one is India, and the blue sign is of global. Global ransomware attacks are almost constant, while we are going up and down, but we are seeing and witnessing more deadlier ransomware attack than our global counterparts. Same goes to botnet, and I think M governance was touched in some of the panel, that we are moving from E governance to M governance. Vijay Devnath touched on M governance. So mobile attack, that's a third attack vector, and which is increasingly going up and up in our country. These are few top threat vectors and attacks which we have witnessed in last 6 months. All these research is being done by Checkpoint Research, and these are open to public. You can subscribe it. We do have certain partnership with Indian government where we generally share threat intel. Now, what is happening? All these attacks generally are being categorized as a Gen 5 attacks. And what is happening? We all observed and discussed in the past the difference in cyber attacks. Now, if you see during 90s, it was all about antivirus protection. Then we moved to firewall. During 2000, we had a stateless firewall. Then, by 2010, we had a IPS, that's an intrusion prevention system. All you can talk about next generation firewall, all those things. There is a Gen 4, that is on content and contextual behavioral analysis, that what is originating, from where it is originating. And today we talk about Gen 5 multi-vector prevention attacks, right? And tomorrow we would be talking about Gen 6 attacks, as well as we move towards the journey of digitalization. And there's a massive digitalization, right? Most of our government organizations are at somewhere between Gen 3 to Gen 4. We are still evolving, as that's what when it was told in a previous panel, uh, that we need to have a CISO, we need to do this, that. Lot has been done, and but it still, we have lot of areas to improvement, and that's where, that's a security gap. And when I say there is a security gap, of course there are security vendors like us who will fill this gap for you. And I'll take, that's all about Checkpoint, who can be your partner. And that's why I said that, we need to be your partner in building cyber resilience. Uh, Thank you, Dr. Narendrath, for gracing us for 11 minutes. I requested for 5 minutes only. So we are a global leader in cybersecurity. Perhaps people or the companies who have started with us in this domain are no more in cybersecurity. Or those companies are no more actually. Right. We have more than 100,000 plus customers. Most of our customers are delighted customers. We operate in 88 plus countries with the help of around 6,200 plus partners. We have, more than going to be a 3 decades of experience, and we cover almost all threat vectors when it comes to cybersecurity, from network to endpoint to mobile to your IoT to your cloud. We almost have every possible solution for your needs when it comes to a cybersecurity. We have all, you all know about Israeli culture when it comes to innovation. We almost have highest number of innovations and patent in our name. We do have, there's no need to tell that we are now more than 10,000 plus employees worldwide. We do operate with Nasdaq and world's best employer. There's may not, you may not find it useful for you, but that makes a lot of difference, because only happy employees give best services, best security to best customers. And last slide, and that's what I say, you deserve the best security. And in the Checkpoint parlance, when we say best, B stands for blocking threats. That's a real time prevention. E means everywhere. We cover almost all threat vectors, as I said. Smart AI and AI powered prevention and operations, and trusted. Trust became an important factor when we are having a discussion. So, all right, I'll take 30 seconds if my time is not up, and if I may crave your indulgence for 30 more seconds to summarize this. Threat landscape is changing. We need to build a cyber resiliency, and that's how we can secure our infrastructure. And we, as a Checkpoint, we want to be your trusted advisor when it comes to cyber security. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience.